Hey, Dad, tell
No, we
me
didn't
about
talk about that.
your time in the war. How old were you when you went to the war?
Well, must have been 18 or 19 or 18. I was drafted probably around 18. 18, 40, yeah, 42. How old, born 24, how old does it make me? 24, 34? Yeah, about 18 now. So.
So you were a soldier in the in Germany?
Yeah,
Good memory.
Drafted into Germany. Then later, for training, they went to Belgium. Belgium, they got the basic training there. And then.
But you were just a farm boy, right?
Yeah, more. Yeah, well, I worked as a.
Hold on.
Mechanic.
Hold on. Let me.
As a machinist, a mechanic.
In the.
Yeah, before I went in the army.
Oh.
Yeah, I worked for 3.5 years. School ended 14, and then 15, 16, 17. Then in a half, I served apprenticeship, and then worked for a half year, I think, for Singer sewing machine, but they made aircraft pumps. They didn't make any sewing machine. And then I think that I got drafted because up to.
And how long were you?
Yeah, about those in Georgia and Belgium training. Then went to Italy. Was getting our way to Africa, but things were falling apart there, kind of breaking down there because the Allies cut the supply lines. So then they were stayed in. Then they first took Sardinia. Later the ship was picked to Italy and then tried to the other kind of sort of engaged with the other side there. But I was a good young and reckless. I was good at
Think of that sometimes.
So how were you taken as a prisoner of war?
I think of that sometimes. In the war, how stupid that is.
Yeah.
The Germans, the Jews, remember? I couldn't have loved anybody else better than I loved him. You know? I couldn't have loved anyone more than I ever loved you. And it goes to show how crazy these things are. You know? Nationalities, who Jews, German, all that sort of thing.
I was in Italy and Monte Cassino was quite a bit at the front line have been and still have quite a while there, and it was back and forth there, but then I belonged to kind of a mobile unit. They shipped us back from one side of the country to the other, just wherever they needed us. One day the German part knew that the Allies would start their offensive around May 20 or there. And they brought us over there and stationed us near the front lines there of the Allied side. I was up here on the hill, up on the top of the hill there. And I did, yeah. So and then the next day, I observed the Allied troops aligning their front line there. One row of tanks there, one row maybe half a mile long or a mile. Behind them, the foot soldiers. And then. 9 or 10 o'clock they started moving forward there. So I was on the hill, on the tip of the hill, pretty close to the front line there. And then the Allied started moving there, and I had a machine gun there, and there was another machine gun there. When there came somebody in the range, we started firing, the foot soldiers went back. The foot soldiers who marched behind the tanks went back to their lines, but the tanks keep moving forward there. So, and then eventually I was wondering what to do with but the tanks moved forward, and eventually came around up the hill, and up in the hill there. I had to get out my foxhole pretty fast, real fast. Yeah, I didn't know at the time.
Say that again. You were in a foxhole, and what happened?
Yeah, I had a machine gun, and then when the airline troops came into the range, and the tanks came into somebody in the range, so I started firing there, and there was another machine gun a little bit to the one side, but you may have run out of ammunition, and then I didn't know what happened to them, but I got caught off. The captains came around there, and then I had to get out of my foxhole, because tanks had a tendency to drive over your foxhole and turn around you and kind of squash the hole. That was not a nice death.
Ew.
So then I went down, hit the hill. They noticed it, but I didn't. And waited there. Since there was daylight, I stayed there. Maybe half an hour later, a few tanks came to the foot of the hill and started firing into the hill. Yeah, but I didn't go out. Yeah, I was young and stupid. Yeah, I didn't go out. So I stayed there. At that time, I didn't know that the Germans already had moved their troops way back there. There was no fighting or anything, because the Germans already had moved their troops back a few hundred miles, because they had another beachhead in them back there. So waited till night. Waited till night, and then at night I went down and tried to. I didn't know that the German lines had already moved back, so I tried to go back to the German lines and move the north, go by the North Star there. It was kind of moonlight. On the street there, it lights in the worker. Then one night when daylight came, I hid in the creek there.
Were you by yourself?
Yeah, I was in the creek. Yeah, I kept moving. I kept going north. Yeah, I think I would catch up with the Germans, but they had already moved their troops 100 miles away up north there. So waited daylight time. I waited there. Next night I kept marching north. Then that night I walked through British troop cells, a bunch of cells. So they already British had put up tents for their troops there, and yes, maybe I walked right through there. But then another day, the next day, keep marching north. And during daylight, hit the bushes or some place, a hiding place there. Third night, I went keep going north there, and then I had to walk through some kind of American troops. They all had, everything was, there wasn't really fighting because the Germans had moved back. So I walked through the other tent city there, and then somebody and some guard there noticed me, and I didn't see him, and I picked now. So I had a gun there, but I didn't use it because. I had a gun, but so I figured 3 days. The Germans started shooting their rockets over the hill, and you hear the howling of the rockets. But they were shooting mostly in the blind. Yeah, I didn't see any heavy damage or anything. Yeah, but yeah, well, young and young.
So you walked into
Yeah.
by yourself
Yeah,
into a
yeah,
British
Yeah, right. Yeah.
into the Allies camp?
Yeah, right through the camp, yeah. They probably knew that the Germans had moved already, yeah.
And you had a gun and they didn't shoot you?
Yeah, what?
You had a gun and they
Yeah, I had a Belgian gun there, yeah.
Why didn't they kill you?
Oh, no, the guard who, he took my gun away, I didn't put up a fight or anything there, yeah. That's kind of a Belgian gun for a machine gun. Let's see, machine gun first kind of fires pretty fast. And, so when the Allies started moving, then the tank started moving, and the foot soldiers behind the tank. When they came somewhat in range, they had started shooting high in the air, and then I guess the stray bullets also probably the most could have caused problem for the American, for the Allied troops. So yes, that all the foot soldiers went back, but the tanks just keep going ahead there. When finally come around and come up the hill there. And you also cut off some other troops on the other side of the hill. There must have been some German troops left there, so I noticed some officers from our company, they were called through there. But young.
Did they put you in a jail?
No, then they in 3 days they shipped me to. They had other prisoners, and they shipped us to some port, and then they put us, collected all the German soldiers, and shipped us to Egypt over there.
So you were on a boat?
Yeah, the English one, Captain English prisoner, and they had the British. They had their prisoner camps in Egypt, or near the Suez Canal there. So they took us to all the other German prisoners over there near the Suez Canal, near a little bit near Cairo or something.
Well, was this about 1945?
Yeah, 19 or maybe 20 or something.
What?
20, or let's see.
So you were born in 24, so you were 20,
Yeah,
so you were 1944.
Yeah, and then of course this was May 42, and the war ended it was May 44 when I got captured, and I think the war ended in about October, October 44 or something.
Right.
Same year there. But they kept us. Things were kind of messy in Germany. With the British, they needed us to let us work in their supply camps there. And they said they didn't have any ships to take us back to Germany, but Germany was much doing anyway because of a lot of destruction, and so they kept us, stayed in Egypt for about 3 years. Well, in the meantime, of course, things got better in Germany there. I was pretty fortunate.
So you were in Egypt for 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years.
Is that where you learned English?
No, not really, but I picked up something in Austria. I tried to pick up something in Austria. Used to be a newspaper. It's pretty close to Suez Canal.
Were they humane to you?
No,
Were they good to you?
they didn't kept us treated us good there. Food was simple, sometimes once in a while they got a little bit rambunctious and they maybe tried to rebellious, but they all had to do was turn off the water.
Did you?
Then they had those
That'll show them.
at first we had those South African guards, and they were pretty friendly to Germans. So when so you got a little rebellious, they threw their guns away, but now and then, but then they replaced the guards with some more other tougher guys. Yeah, I was a pretty adventure. Look forward to the war, go to different countries. Yeah. I didn't mind to go into the army then. The army took care of me really. First adventure.
And so from Egypt, where did you go? From Egypt, where?
Well, I went home to my dad. My mother was still. My dad, the family broke up there. Father was in Western Germany. My mother was in Eastern Germany. I don't know where Jan Eberhard, where he was at the time. He was a younger at the time. My older brother.